Welcome, everyone, to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and with me is my co-host,
Anthony. Good evening. Good to be here.
Anthony. And we have a guest tonight. Before we introduce her, let's talk about a couple things here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I keep forgetting to say that. And if you have a story, send it to me at joshturner@prtpodcast.com, or you can send it to me on Facebook. And if you're not my friend, you can still send me a message on Messenger, okay? And I am going to start approving friend requests again. It's just, we had people messing with us, and they were using fake accounts, and it was hard to know who's who, but we're going to get back on track. This is the Thursday edition of Paranormal Roundtable, and obviously we're going to have a guest. That's what always happens on the Thursday edition, and this person has a lot to say and a lot to talk about. But before we get started with all that, we have a Patreon that we had to tell you about. It's a $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier. Each tier gets progressively better swag bag is basically what we call it. You get swag, right? And it just goes from $10, and after 2 months, you get a bag that gives you an autographed book from one of many authors that we're affiliated with. And you get like stickers and keychain and some other stuff. We usually throw in some different things. And then the $20 tier, it's the same thing, but you also get a t-shirt. And then the $30 tier, it's a t-shirt or a hoodie, depending on if we have them in stock. And if we have your size, and you get 2 books. And then on the $40 tier, you get everything you get on the $30 tier plus one of my autographed books. And then on the $50 tier, you get everything from those other tiers plus you get another book. You get both of my books. The Dogman Phenomena, it's Werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena, and the Bigfoot Phenomena. And so you'll get both of those autographed along with 2 other books and a hoodie. That's a pretty good deal. And it's after 2 months of being a Patreon member. That's a heck of a way to support us and help the show. It helps us tremendously. Also, during this show and every other show, if you're watching it when it premieres, or if you're watching the live streams, which are YouTube exclusives on Friday and Sunday, you can do a super chat, and that helps out too. Friday, we have a guest on the live stream. Every Friday starts around 8:30, and then it goes about 3 hours typically. It always does. And then Sunday starts about 7:30, and it goes about 3 hours. It always does. Typically. And that is without a guest. We just retell people's stories, just like the Tuesday 1-hour edition of the Paranormal Roundtable. Now, if you're only listening to us on Spotify or Podbean or Stitcher, all them other 15 different platforms we're on, you're missing out. You can listen to us for the podcast episode, but you're not going to get what you get from YouTube if you're listening to us on the Friday and the Sunday. And that's just, I'm just telling you. You're missing out because a lot of the stuff intertwines too. So 4 nights a week of Paranormal Roundtable. Yep, that's what you get, folks. And they ask me, they're like, "Baby Josh, why do you do this 4 nights a week?" And I tell them, well, because I'm selfless. So that being said, join our Facebook group, Josh Turner, Wolf Turner, or whatever, PRT podcast. That's my Facebook group that was created as a fan page. And then we have a holistic healing. We have a prayer group, all under the headline of Paranormal Roundtable. And then, of course, we have the Paranormal Roundtable group. And we will put the links to these shows on there. You can leave a comment. And if you are picked, you'll get an autographed book and a few other things. So that's another way to get merchandise from us. But the easiest way is just to go to the store and pick yourself up something. Like, it's cold right now, go get you a hoodie. They're nice. I'm wearing one right now, actually, in the studio. I wouldn't lie to you. And then I have the zip-up hoodies, and those are selling like hotcakes. People love those. And so we're just keeping those in stock, But we have done really well with those zip-up hoodies. Go check them out. They're in the Paranormal Roundtable store. And there should be a link on the show right here, right?
There's always links to everything we talk about in the description of the YouTube upload.
Yeah, and go check out our friends and associates, Martin Nunley with Inhumanoids and his show, Blondes and Booze, Texas Front Porch, BMR. He's another one. My friend Matt Impsch, Planet 412, Crypto Normal Encounters with B. Moss. These are just some of our friends. Lyle Blackburn's podcast, Monstro Bizarro. Check these guys out, man. Go check out their YouTube channels and go check out their podcasts. Also, Chris Garitano, Off to the Witch, another good podcast. I've been on it twice. I've been on all those shows. Just go check them out. They're good. They're good people. And so that being said, let's get started. I'm really ready to go here. Angela, okay?
Hi.
You want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm Angela Shelton. I grew up in Maryland. Haunted all my life, basically.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
I guess it basically all started with my mom, and then I guess it just went right on through the family. So, yeah.
That's kind of how it works. A lot of times, you'll inherit something from a parent. Was your mother had experiences, things going on?
Oh, yeah. She's had these different experiences since she was little also. I've seen her then. She was having a nervous breakdown. She was having some mama drama, going on in her life. And we went to go visit one of her friends, and she was stirring her cup of coffee, and I just seen, this spoon wrapped around her fingers. And I said, I looked at her and I said, I'm like, just, shocked. And then the woman, her friend that gave her the spoon, she said, she goes, "Oh my gosh, I did not give that to you like that." She goes, "Let me get you another spoon." My mom, it just freaked everyone out that my mom, somehow that metal just bent around her fingers. And so odd things like that would happen on and off with her through her life. And like lights would, pop, just pop, and go out. And it's just a lot of different things that she would tell, she has told me over the years because of, all of my things that were going on with me being little. And it all, started before I was born while she was carrying me. And a lot of paranormal was just going all around her. And then after, I was born premature, and I was 2 pounds, and they had to bring me up to 5 pounds, I guess, before we could leave the hospital. And so she got me home finally, and things just started happening all around, surrounding her and me together a lot. And she was sitting on a bed with me one night, and she couldn't sleep. She was up holding me and holding my foot, and she said she was just sitting there, and she had this, whatever entity this was or whoever this was came through her door, because she would have a brick up against her door. If it was knocked over, she would know that, the people that she was living with had either came in the room or whatever, because it would be knocked over. But she had the brick up against her door and a night light on. All of a sudden, she saw this man, very tall, dark hair, about, I would say, maybe above his shoulders, the hair. He came walking through. How she described him was he was wearing old attire, like a green cloak. He was dressed all in this khaki looking green, like his old suit. And he came walking through her door, and she said to herself, "Oh goodness, he's going to hit his head," because he was so tall. And she closed her eyes, and he came walking, glided. She said he just, it wasn't like he was walking. It was like he was just gliding, and he came right over to the side of the bed, and he bent down, and he was looking at me right in my face, and then looked over at her and smiled and looked back down to me. And so she's counting to 10, over and over and over again, squeezing my foot, and then peeking through, and he was still there. So after, she started seeing him raise up, she was like, "Oh, good, he's going to go. He's going to leave. And she looked up at him, and he smiled and just turned and went back through the door. And she thought again that he was going to hit his head because he was very tall. She said I didn't just see that, she's rocking me and she's holding my foot and she's like squeezing my foot. And she said that I didn't even cry because she was just so afraid, to let me go. And then she thought to herself, all I need now is for someone to put their arm through that door. And then she put me down on the bed and she goes, that had to have been somebody that came in here. I don't, she's like second guessing herself, not believing. So she's on the floor on her knees and she felt for that brick and it was still leaning up against the door. The door was still shut, all the way. And she jumped back in bed, grabbed me. And then she thought again, all I need now is for an arm to come through that door. And that is exactly what had happened. But it was her friend Shirley that she was roommates with and everything. And she came up to sneak in to get me so my mom could sleep, So when my mom seen this arm coming through the door, she just freaked and, screamed and everything. And so Shirley ran in and she goes, Sharon, it's me and it's okay. It's okay. So she told my mom to take her sleeping medicine and then she'll take care of me while she sleeps. And so my mom did. And so it's like things on and off would happen in this house. And this was in on Pulaski Street in Baltimore. This is where I lived up until I was 14. So this house and other houses too, everybody on that street and even across the street had a lot of paranormal going on. And we would all sit around and talk about it with my mom and, her friends. And of course I would hear it too, and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, how do I tell my mom about the things that happened to me? Because my vocabulary was only so big, I was just little. All of this stuff was just like surrounding me and her. So one night she had put me to bed and everything. And it was my second birthday and it was at nighttime. And I remember this because when she tucked me in, she said to me, you're my big birthday girl, my big 2-year-old. And you had a great day and you did a great job today. And, at your party, all this stuff. And she was just talking with me and tickling me and tucking me in. And then she turned the nightlight, a Jesus nightlight in my room. She had turned it on and she gave me a hug and kiss and everything. She went into her bedroom, which was back, like in my room. If you walk through my room, you walk through my brother's room and then to the bathroom. But her room was, if you go up the stairs, her room was to the left and mine and my brother's room were to the right. So, I laid there for a good bit. And I was looking at the Jesus nightlight, and it was a hologram. And I remember moving my head one way, and he would be praying in the garden. And then if I moved my head the other way, he was sitting like at the Last Supper kind of picture, So I would just do that. And I would do that sometimes until I would fall asleep. So, but this particular night, I felt something different. I felt something new to me, that it was very, very strange. And then it started getting to feel like something was running circles around in my room, looking at me like in all of the corners of the room. And then it almost felt like as if I was trying to keep up with it. I mean, it was just a very odd feeling, and being 2 years old. And I remember this, and then I hear like a growl, and I'm looking around the room and I'm thinking, what is that? And I started to feel fear to where I was afraid to even scream or to call for my mom. And I'm looking and I just kept looking around, and then in the corner of my room to the left, I saw these red eyes. And that is when the fear went right through me. And then I couldn't even move, but I can still see it. It was like a paralysis type thing, or, I couldn't move. So yeah, with that growling, and then it came closer to me, and all I could see was at the moment was just the eyes, the red eyes, and it would just like prowl around me, creep around me, and I can hear like where it was. And then when I'm thinking that it was in front of me, it came up under the bed and grabbed me through. Now, this is the part that I couldn't even think of how in the world it could even happen. Being 2 years old, it came through like underneath the bed, through the mattress, and grabbed me. And then it growled, and then it let me go. And then I could feel like everything breaking off of me. And then I sat up and I tried to scream, because even when it had me in that, I tried to scream and nothing was coming out. Like I knew no one could hear me. So when it broke off of me, I can feel and move my hands, my feet, I can move everything, and I can still feel from where it grabbed me. It had like this, like still like as if it still had me. That's what it felt like. But then it had like this tingling type sensation that just stayed for a while. And I sat up, and then I tried to scream, and I took a breath, and I did it again. And I screamed so loud that I woke up the people's kids next door to me on both sides, and people across the street came running over because everybody knew everyone in the neighborhood.
How old were you?
In the 70s. I was 2.
Wow.
And so from that, that was the beginning of my torture in this house. It was, we also found out later too that the woman Shirley that my mom was, that she lived with when I was a baby, Shirley and her family moved out and left my mom the house with the landlord. And so my mom took over. So when I was 2, my mom, she also knew that the woman Shirley would do like use a Ouija board and stuff like that. So my mom had found this Ouija board later on. It was in the basement left from this woman. So my mom had tossed it out in the trash later on. But I don't know if these things, came through with her using it, because she used it quite often, and she claimed that there were things talking to her. So left us with horrors.
Yeah,
For me, it was
thanks
horror.
a lot.
Yeah, and so when I just want to tell you too, when I was an infant, after my mom brought me home and that one incident happened, there was some more incidences where she had finally put my crib up in my room. She started doing my room, and she had a bed put in there too. She would lay on it while I was in my crib. But she'd put me in my crib, and she started noticing this smell of like a garden after a fresh rain. And she said she could not, in the city, you don't smell that, unless you actually grow one. But it's in my room, and she's smelling like this floral, this beautiful, she said she had never smelled anything like it. And she just loved it. And she's smelling around. And then she noticed that it was, it looked like it was raining in my room in every corner. And she's looking around, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's raining. And she's looking for leaks, and there's no leaks. So that happened. It came and went. And so that she couldn't figure out that either. So then there was another time when I'm still tiny, and she's sitting on the bed in that same room, and she's rocking me because she had just fed me or whatever. And she's sitting there on the bed, and then she hears something in her ear, someone saying to her, "Get up." And she turned and looked, and she's looking around. She's like, "No, I didn't, I did not just hear that, And then she heard it again, "Get up." She's still sitting there, and she's, sitting there thinking to herself, why do I have to get up? And then she hears it again, "Get up." And she ignored it. Then it yelled in her ear saying, "Get up." And she jumped up. She's okay. I'm up. And she moved away from the bed, and the ceiling collapsed right where we were sitting, right on top of the bed. So that happened. And it was like, some things would try to protect you, or like warn you. And then there were some things that were not very nice. And so I guess you get the good with the bad. So that's how I, took it growing up. So then there's when I was little, I just started walking and, learning how to walk. And I remember that I had to climb on these steps. I remember this day being little and falling and busting my mouth. And that's all I remember. I don't remember going to the hospital, getting stitches. I don't remember any of that. So my mom went up in her room. She had a woman that was sitting on the steps to watch me while she went upstairs to grab something. And then she had my clothes and my brother's clothes hanging on the line in her bedroom. She said she went up there, and then she said that the clothes started moving on the hanger, on the clothesline. And then she said, "Are you trying to tell me something?" And then the clothes just stopped. Like they didn't even move. And then she said, "Which one is going to, is it one of my kids? Which one?" And then only my clothes would move. Because when she left, I was playing peekaboo with a woman across the street at the Shepherd's Bar up above in the windows. And that was like the family bar of everybody, everyone in that neighborhood, like the older women, they would come and take me places, and they loved me. So I'm playing peekaboo with this woman up in the window. My mom looked out her bedroom window and saw the woman in the window across from her, and she's pointing down, and she's like, her face is like, real serious, and she's pointing down. And my mom, she said, she goes, "Is it one of my kids?" And my clothes started moving again. So she said, "That's it." So she took off out of there, went outside and went out the door, and she looked down, and there I was, and like a little fountain of blood was just pouring out of my mouth. And so that was another thing that happened. And goodness, like the stories go on. So when I do remember I had my first fight with a girl, and then a bully girl in the neighborhood, and I didn't want to fight. My dad said, "Well, if you don't get out there and beat her butt, I'm going to beat yours," kind of thing. And I'm like, he made me a tomboy,
Yeah, he was old school.
Yeah, yep. So he made me get out there, and I'm like, I do not want to fight anyone, because it's not me. So my dad said, "You get out there and fight this girl. Is the only way she's ever going to leave you alone." And I'm like, "Well, what if she beats me up? She's going to come back again," And it just, he was like, "I mean it." So I had to get out there and fight. I sat there first. The girl came up and she just started hitting on me, and I was like, "Okay, that's enough." So that's where it all started. And that fight was 2 hours long. And I can't tell you what happened in it. I don't remember. My mom said, and my dad, everyone who's seen it, said to me, "You took that girl," because I was wondering why she was so bloody and scratched up and beat up. And because when I came through, I had her hair wrapped up in my hand and still like hitting her in the face. And that's how I came through. Like, I'm like, I didn't do that. I let her go, and I backed away from her. And I was in a state of, how did that even happen? How did I get her on the ground? And people are like, later on, they're like, "You fought like somebody on TV. Like, you just picked her up and slammed her, just like she was nothing." So that scared me really bad, because the more I thought about it, the more it was, bothering me. I didn't even want to talk about it because I couldn't remember any of it. And I told my mom, I said, "I don't think I was," and she goes, "There." She said, the whole time, even my dad, the whole time I was fighting this girl, it was like my eyes were not, like, as if I wasn't there. It wasn't me. And I said, there was no way in the world that I could fight like that. It was like watching someone who was trained to fight. And I had this girl, like, I was afraid if I went any further, she wasn't going to make it. It just scared me that bad, because I saw her bleeding and the blood on my hands wasn't mine. And I let her go, backed off, and fight was over. The whole big giant crowd went all home, and I'm sitting in the bathtub, scratched up a bit. And sitting in the before I even went into the house, I didn't know. I just kept saying, I'm going to kill her. I just started screaming this because I was coming out of something that I didn't understand. I just started screaming, I'm going to kill her. And then someone slapped me across my face. It was my mom. I was looking at my brother when she did it, and I thought he did it. And I took my fist and I punched him square in the nose and bloodied his nose. And and my mom just she said, "That's it. Get in the house. Just go in the house. Go in the house, and we'll discuss this in the house." So I got in the tub and everything, get in the bath, and my friend, she came up there and she goes, "I never seen anything like it." She's telling me about it, and I'm like, I don't want to know. And so she's like, "Okay." She goes, "Well, I'll come over tomorrow and see how you're feeling." And I'm like, "Okay, So then my brother, he wanted to come in, so I covered myself in the tub and all, and then I was hysteric crying, and I felt so horrible for hitting him. And he come in with the fingers in a cross position. He's like, he's like, is it safe to talk to you for just a second? I was like, yeah, and he's standing by the door. So he was telling me that he wasn't the one that hit me. It was mom. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I said, I'm really sorry. I was just crying my heart out. So I never got in another fight like that. I just, I stayed away from people who just seemed, grouchy. They want to fight, or, I didn't want to do that again. So I just can't remember one thing of that. I don't know how or why or what jumped in me and just took care of the business for me. I don't know. That was just one of the things that really bothered me, along with everything else in that house. And then there's more times of being before the age of 5. I'm going to jump back a little bit. Before the age of 5 here, I'm trying to just cram this all in there for you guys too, because it's just, remembering back. But before the age of 5, I was being attacked again by whatever was in that room. It was like my mom started teaching me how to pray and everything like that. And because I just kept waking up or just getting up screaming, and she couldn't have sleep. There was no way. I was always with her, and she was always up all night rocking me, and stuff like that. So I had this one incident to where I was being attacked, and then I started concentrating on moving my fingers and toes to break off whatever that was. But one night I sat up and I just started screaming, in the name of Jesus, go back to hell. And I kept repeating it like my mother told me to do. And I heard this thing scream. It was like screaming right in my face. And it was a horrible scream I have never heard before. And then it started screaming. It just kept on screaming. And then it sounded like it was fading out and fading out and fading out, as if it was falling back to hell. And then it all stopped. And then that's when I felt something lift in the room, like it was gone. And I knew it was gone. And then I screamed again for my mom. And this stuff went on like this, seeing things, in front of down the hallway, going into the bathroom from my brother's room. Something tall, dark, thin, long arms, long legs, fingers, long black fingers, and it was just moving, doing a sidestep from the left to the right of the bathroom door as I'm looking at it. And I'm laying down on my bed, looking down that hallway, and I can see the light was on in the bathroom, and it was shining around that door. And this thing was jumping back and forth, and then a couple of times it looked like it was going to come right straight for me. And I was petrified. I couldn't even move. I didn't want to move, and I couldn't breathe right. I had shallow breathing because I was afraid I was popping out in sweat. And so I started lining up my animals and dolls and stuff around on my bed. And my mom, she asked me one day, she goes, when did this start? Why do you do this? And I told her, I was like, there's monsters. And, I didn't know what else to call it, and she knew something was going on paranormal because she kept telling me, different prayers. And she told me that if something comes at me, this is what to say. So yeah, I've done all of that and just growed up like that, couldn't really tell too many people, and just my mom,
So this is all from when you were young, and so it's just been going on and on and on. And, and your mother has told you like multiple stories, like, right, about what went on with her. And you guys, I mean, an obvious question, but have you guys sat there and compared notes?
Yes. And what we found out was the thing that was attacking me, she was also having the same experience as I was. Like, this thing wasn't just attacking me, it was attacking her. But she didn't know that it was the same thing attacking me when I was little, until I got old enough to tell her in better words, and she says, I am so sorry. She says, I knew something was happening, but I did not know that the same thing that was happening to me was also happening to you. So it's like she didn't put two and two together until later. And so that was just, it was frightening. It's frightening as a kid. And then you get so tired of it to where you just let it happen. So you can study what's attacking you to try to figure out how you can actually defeat whatever this is. And why does it keep coming back? Why is it, still attacking me? And so that's what I did, from 2 to about 8 years old. This is what I was trying to figure out. And I also, one time I sat up because I felt like this jolt. So I sat up and I didn't realize that I could actually do this either. And it was out of body experience. And I heard someone's, like breathing behind me. And I didn't know that I was up out of my body, sitting up. And I looked behind me and it was myself. I'm looking right at myself. And I'm sitting there and like, how do you process that? You're sitting up, but you're sleeping behind yourself. So that also was when something came at me as I was sitting there like that. And then I realized when I went to scream, no one can hear me because I wasn't in that realm. I wasn't in my physical body. That this thing can actually hear me and everything because I'm now, in its realm, in the spiritual. So I told it in the name of Jesus Christ, and that this is when I casted another one like this one out, but I was actually sitting up out of my body doing it. And this was something that I didn't know anything about until it happened to me. So that thing it screamed like the last one, and it went away just like the last one. So after that happened, I woke up, and I even looked behind myself to make sure I was actually sitting in my body. I was actually sitting up, and I was, and then I screamed for my mom. So later on, I told her about that, and she's actually done that too. She has figured out too that, when you're out of your body, you can actually cast these things away from you that are going to harm you. And I don't like out of body. Like, when I start to feel like it's going to happen, I'll wake myself up because I don't like it. I don't want to do that. it just happens on its own. So I don't like it. It feels like I'm slipping on ice or something on my feet. And then I jerk and I'll wake myself up. So she's had multiple experiences with out of body journeys and stuff like that she's done. So here, the whole gift was passed on to me, I guess, however you want to say it, curse. So also, later on growing up, you start to figure out these gifts that you do have, little by little. So it's like I'm a sensitive. I can, sense things and feel things, and I know things are there before anything, and it's like that's been with me all through my years. So I still have it to this day.
So something that started when you were young and has gone on for your whole life. And
Yes.
But so let me ask you this now: when you go to a different place, and starting from when you were a kid, do you like each place have its like unique entities or do you feel like some of this stuff's attached to you and just following you permanently?
I do feel like something is following us, and it just went down from me down to all four of my kids, all four. So it's and some that are unique because I did live in other places. Like when we first moved from Pulaski Street to Sipple Avenue in Baltimore, but it's more near like you call it Harford Road area and all of that, like off Moravia Road in Maryland. And so we moved there, and it's an old house. It was like we were drawn to it, me and my mom, and we're like, oh wow, it was one of the first houses that was actually built there, and it was a slaughterhouse for, what do you call it, for meat and stuff like that. And it was like a farm kind of thing before a lot of other houses were built there, but we didn't know that part yet. So we moved in, and the attic, you can fit like 4 bedrooms, and it is really big, to fit a bed in each one of the areas of the attic. And so we didn't have any of the stuff in the house just yet. We had some boxes downstairs, but we didn't have anything in that attic but my mom's wicker swing. So, I mean, if you go from you go up the steps to the bedrooms, and then you make like a left, and then you go down that little hallway, and then make another little left and up steps, and you can peek your eyes over, into the attic, So that's where the wicker swing was actually sitting. So the dogs started acting really crazy, and we're like, what is wrong with these dogs? We never seen them bark and growl like this. Is crazy. So that night we were in our rooms, and we didn't have much, just blankets to lay on at the time, because it was like our first night. And then my mom said, I know, let's all just stay in one room together, and the dogs. So we did. And this was late. It must have been like 3 a.m. And we started hearing something, as if something was hitting into the house, all over the house, on the outside. It sounded like it was surrounding us inside. It sounded like, I don't know, I wouldn't say bats, maybe like birds. It wasn't like heavy pebbles or rocks. It was like just something hitting all over the whole house, the windows, glass, everything. But we're looking out, and there was nothing. We couldn't see anything with our naked eye. And I said, this is not, I don't think that's good, And I'm like, what is that? So that all happened, and my dad went out, and he's looking for, eggs, like maybe somebody had egged the house, or, we didn't know. So he didn't find anything. There was absolutely nothing around the house. And he was like, he said, what is it with you two? He would always make jokes every time, he was like, mother like daughter. And he goes, you two are just alike, you and your paranormal stuff. It was just, he'd laugh, but he didn't find anything. So we're like, that was that was crazy. So the next day we got stuff in the house, and of course that wicker swing was already put up in that attic, and the dog stood in that hallway just growling and like drooling. I've never seen our 2 terriers ever do that. And I said, what is going on? So my mom said, okay. So she's like making the dogs go first, trying to get them up those steps. And I'm thinking, not again. Like, I don't want this stuff following you, or, anywhere. But we felt and knew something was up there. And so the dogs took off and left us. And we went up on that little flight of stairs and then peeked our eyes up over to see whatever we could see. And that wicker swing was just swinging by itself. And I looked at my mom and I said, see, it followed you here, whispering back and forth. And she's like, yeah. So I left. I'm like, you know what? Nope, I'm not staying around here. And, we went back downstairs. And so the next night we were in our rooms. My dad finally put the beds up, earlier that day. And so we're in our own rooms, and I'm hearing as if somebody is sliding boxes across the floor, like furniture, boxes, setting things down, heavy, like boot steps, like a man. And I'm like, I know my mom is not wearing boots like that. She doesn't have boots like that, or my dad doesn't either. So we all come out of our rooms at the same time looking at each other. And I said, who? And my dad's pointing, and he's like, and we can still hear it as we're standing in the hallway. And then it just came to a stop. And my dad said, not this house too. That's what his exact words. And so we're like, I don't know. And we went and looked again, and that wicker swing was just swinging by itself. And there was nothing up there. No boxes, no nothing, no furniture. And I'm like, how do you explain that? It was like, I guess it was moving out because we were moving in. I don't know. That was my joke, and so we just had to brush that off too. Then our speakers were going off by themselves, not even set up yet, plugged in or anything. We had voices coming through those. We had our TVs were coming on by themselves, unplugged, because they weren't set up yet either. And so I pushed all of my stuff out in the hallway. And my dad said, why did you do that? Because it was already happening to him and my mom. And I said, did you guys see the movie, Poltergeist? I was like, that TV's not coming back in my room. And, he laughed. And I said, no way, that TV is not coming in my room. So it took a lot for my mom to convince me. She's like, oh, why don't you just plug it in? And if they have anything to say, just listen. I'm like, no, Oh, goodness. The list in that house goes on. And that was the most creepiest place, too, as I'm sitting there one night. My parents went off to a movie together, celebrating their anniversary. And I'm sitting there, and the people that used to live there before us she came with her boyfriend to the door. And it scared me because, I don't know anybody in that neighborhood, so why should there be anyone knocking at our door? So I got up and I talked to them, and she said, I just want you to know that this house has, and I said, demons in it? And she said, how did you know? And I'm like, I was like, well, there are some crazy things in this house happening. And she said, I want to tell you, she says, they're not good. And I said, yep, and she goes, can I take a last look at the house? And I said, only if you take whatever is in here back with you, because it is not mine. Laughing and just talking with her and her boyfriend. And she says, no, I don't want to go any further, really. I guess she didn't want to take him back home with her, but it was odd for that to even happen. Like, who does that? I don't know anyone, but these people came. And so they left, and then my mom and I told her about it, and my dad, and excuse me. So they my dad was like, don't, like, when we're not here, just don't even answer the door for anyone if you don't know them. And I said, okay. So they never even came back. So I didn't have to worry about that. But being in that house, for school, we were like real early in the morning, we were smelling breakfast being cooked in our kitchen. And it just went all through the house. Like, I thought my dad was cooking because he's a chef. And he taught me. So I'm thinking, my dad's up real early to make us breakfast before I go to school. Yay, And nope. We all came out of our rooms and looking at each other like, I said, so you're not cooking breakfast? He said, I thought you were cooking breakfast. I was like, nope. So that would happen, on and off. And
so that was a regular occurrence.
Yes, that was a regular occurrence. So that would
just piss me off. I would just be like, I'm going to get up all ready to eat breakfast, and then you're going to just, you know what? That's going too far.
Yep. Yeah, because my dad, he would make really good breakfasts. He'd like, the biscuits, the gravy, the ham, the
exactly. Even
whole
more
thing.
Reason to be pissed off.
Right, and that's what it smelled like it was cooking.
Torture.
Don't tease me.
Right. So, so all of this would happen, and then I started getting I was being woken up, which I thought was my mom, because I can hear my door open and close. And I'm like, that must be my mom, and then I would get this nudge on my bed at exactly 7:00 in the morning. Every morning that would happen. Somebody that I couldn't see would come in my room and put their knees to my bed and shove my bed to wake me up. And I would turn around and my door is even open, because sometimes I would leave my door open and then I would hear it open and close, but yet my door is still open. So I'm like, oh, that is not my mom, and that's definitely not my dad. And so my mom she was having experience, like her room was made up she had another room up there. So she used it as an arts and craft room. So she was in there a lot, and she would have like her own experiences in there. And, she saw a couple of girls like in those tight poodle skirts and everything in there. She saw them. She saw people going up and down the staircase. And she's like, she would look at me and I'm like, what? And she goes, did you see that? And I'm like, did I see? Nope, I didn't see anything. What did you see? But I can hear girls laughing, you would just get these at the oddest moments where everything is, like your mind is somewhere else. And then it would happen. You would hear something or see something. Then there was bad things there too. It was just, that house was very, very crazy. When I brought my daughter home from the hospital from there after I had her, but I knew I was having a girl within 2 months of my pregnancy. And, and I knew I was having a girl because something told me I was having a girl. And my mom looked at me one day and I said, do you know that I'm going to have a girl because at this time I didn't actually know that I was pregnant. And I said, did you know? I'm like, I'm going to have a girl with my first baby. And she just looked at me strange, and I didn't even, she was like, yeah, when? And of course I was almost 21 at that time anyway. And
you just said this out of the blue.
Right, yeah. She's like, she's looking at me strange. And then lo and behold, I was working at one of our stores. We had food stores, 4 of them. And there was Ocean City Fries and dogs, one of them, Ocean City Fries burgers, and then Ocean City Fries beef and ham. And
your family had these were restaurants?
Yeah, yeah. And family owned, and we had a business partner. And so I worked all of them faithfully with my dad. But one day I went to work and I was severely anemic and didn't know that it was actually going to hit me that day because I was pregnant and I didn't know it yet. And I was making my friend's fries and the fryer just dropped them, fresh cut fries, and I turned around to say something to him, and I just went to pass out right into the fryer, and he grabbed me, and he was really tall. He was in the military, but he grabbed me and he held me up, and he stepped over the counter while holding the back of my shirt and part of my hair, and I'm like dangling. I couldn't even move. So he picked me up, put me on top of the sacks of potatoes in the back, and there wasn't no chair or anything to sit on, and he says, I got to call your dad for you. So he did, and my parents took me. My friend had to carry me to the van, and I couldn't even walk. And
God,
so
you're lucky.
like,
I mean, that is so scary. You almost fell into a fryer.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, while sitting there while he's talking to my dad, I'm like, what in the world is wrong with me? Like, how serious is this? I thought I had the worst, the worst flu in the world or something. And so the doctor's checking me out. My parents took me to their doctor, and he's like, well, what do you think it is? And he took blood from me and everything. And I said, I don't know. I was like, probably the flu. And he goes, uh-huh. So he says, he'll let me know in a few days of, my blood work. I was like, okay. So I'm in my room, and my mom comes in, and by this point, like I knew I had this overwhelming feeling that I'm having a girl. Like I was being told by whatever was around me that I was pregnant. And she come through my door, and I was like, I know. And she said, you're going to be a mom, and I'm like, no. So, but it was just all this paranormal that was, telling me the whole time. Like I knew it was just amazing. So, I mean, of course I had thoughts about it, me actually being, pregnant too at the time too. But, when you're being told by something around you, that just, opened your eyes. But, so then my daughter, it started with her when she was 2, she started seeing things in the room, and she would point and say, I was teaching her colors. So she knew white, she knew black, she knew red, and she's pointing up in this corner, and she's saying white. And then she would jump and just flop down in her crib and pull a blanket over her head. So and I'm like, and she would always point to that same corner in our room. And we just couldn't understand why she would do that. And we knew it was definitely paranormal. And my mom and I both, we felt like there was something even in the room. So one day my mom made her this real pretty book of all these different pictures. So she can, like a big picture book for her. And when we came across the angel, all dressed in white and everything, and she had her blanket with her, and she said, oh, white. And she pulled the blanket over her head, and she was afraid. And my mom was like, oh, she goes, do you think? And I'm like, you know what? Children have them, I guess. And I wouldn't doubt it. So that's where it all started with my daughter. And then, just I never put 2 and 2 together with that very much of, because she wasn't having the night terrors like I went through. But when she was older, she was like around 10, 9 and 10, she started seeing more paranormal and things in her room. And she just started seeing and validating what we were seeing and going through too. So I'm like, you too, huh? And she's like, I don't even want to talk about it. To this day, she doesn't like talking about paranormal. She's against it. Like she doesn't even want to talk about it. It scares her. And I can't blame her. So then it just went to my second child. Not so much as my middle son, but it really got a hold of my youngest. And it has been a nightmare. He was having it just like I did. He was seeing things like I did. He was experiencing a lot of different things that he couldn't even explain to me because he was, just so little.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that next week, folks, on the Paranormal Roundtable with Angela. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And Angela, we'll see you next week. Good night.